You walk toward a glass door, grab the handle, and pull. Nothing happens. You push. Still nothing. Someone behind you is waiting, so you try again and feel strangely incompetent. But the door is not testing your intelligence. It is sending you conflicting instructions. When an ordinary object makes many people hesitate, the useful question is not, what is wrong with them? It is, what is the object communicating? Now watch 10 different people approach the same door. They do not share a personality, an education, or a level of patience. Yet several make the same wrong move. That repetition matters. A single error might be random. A pattern of errors is evidence. The design has made one action look more likely than the action that actually works. Confusion has been built into the encounter. This is the problem Donald A. Norman made famous in The Design of Everyday Things, Revised and Expanded Edition. The book is not really about doors, kettles, switches, or software. It is about the conversation between people and designed things. Norman asks why useful objects become confusing, why people blame themselves, and how design can make the next action and its result easier to understand. Every interaction has two broad challenges. First, you must figure out what you can do and how to do it. Then, after acting, you must figure out what happened. Norman describes these as the gulfs of execution and evaluation. Good design narrows both. It helps you discover an action before you commit, and it makes the result legible after the action occurs. Start with affordance. Psychologist J.J. Gibson introduced the term, and Norman brought it into design. An affordance is a relationship between an actor and an environment that makes an action possible. A handle can afford grasping for a hand that can reach it. A flat plate can afford pushing. The possibility exists whether or not the person notices it, understands it, or chooses it. But possibility is not the same as communication. A signifier is the perceivable clue that tells you where and how to act. The handle affords grasping, but its shape also signifies pulling. That signal can be wrong. A door may physically require a push while its large handle loudly suggests a pull. The action is possible, the clue points the other way. A better door explains itself before you touch it. On the push side, use a broad plate that invites the palm but gives the fingers nothing useful to pull. On the pull side, use a handle that can be wrapped by the hand. The two sides should not look identical when they demand opposite actions. The hardware becomes the instruction. What about a sticker that says push? It can help, but it is often a patch on top of the contradiction. People may be distracted, moving quickly, reading another language, or following the stronger cue from the hardware. Words are useful as redundancy. They are weak when they must fight the object itself. The best instruction is usually built into the form. Signifiers answer, where should I act? Mapping answers which control affects which result. Imagine 4 ceiling lights arranged in a square. If 4 switches sit in one straight row, you must remember an arbitrary code. If the switches copy the same square layout, the relationship becomes visible. That is natural mapping. The arrangement of controls mirrors the arrangement of what they control. A stove often hides the same problem. 4 burners form a rectangle while 4 identical knobs form a line. Which knob controls the back left burner? Tiny labels force you to stop, decode, and remember. Arrange the controls to match the burners, and the answer becomes spatial. Good mapping moves knowledge from your head into the world. After you act, feedback tells you what happened. Press a button, and it changes state. Turn a dial, and the display responds. Close a door, and the latch gives a clear sound and resistance. Useful feedback is prompt, informative, and connected to the action. It does not merely celebrate that something happened, it helps you understand what changed. Feedback is not a substitute for a good clue. A door that refuses to move is technically giving feedback, but only after you make the wrong move in public. An error message can explain failure, but only after your work is interrupted. Design should help before, during, and after action. Waiting for failure is an expensive way to teach the interface. Another design tool is constraint. A good constraint removes impossible or dangerous choices. A connector shaped to fit only the correct orientation prevents a wrong insertion. A guard keeps fingers away from a blade. A push plate removes the temptation to pull. Constraints do not always reduce freedom. Often they reduce uncertainty, making the safe path easier to discover. Poor design has a psychological side effect. People rarely say, "This control has ambiguous mapping and weak feedback." They say, "I am terrible with technology." The object disappears from the story while the person absorbs the blame. That is why small design failures matter. They do not only waste seconds. Repeated confusion can teach capable people to distrust their own judgment. This does not mean every mistake has one simple design cause. Real failures can involve training, fatigue, culture, maintenance, incentives, and unusual conditions. But when the same error is predictable, blaming the final person hides the chain that produced it. Better analysis asks what cues, procedures, constraints, and feedback made the error likely or allowed it to continue. A clue is never interpreted in a vacuum. Bodies differ. Cultures learn different conventions. Lighting, noise, gloves, urgency, and disability change what can be perceived or done. Good design reduces avoidable confusion, but it cannot erase context. The question is not whether one perfect symbol works for everyone. It is whether the system offers clear, redundant, and accessible ways to understand and act. The door is only the beginning. Software can hide actions behind unlabeled icons, place destructive controls beside safe ones, or show no response after a click. The material changes from metal to pixels, but the design questions remain. What actions are possible? Which clues reveal them? How do controls map to outcomes? What feedback makes the new state understandable? Even clear systems cannot prevent every error, so good design also supports recovery. It makes destructive actions harder, previews consequences, preserves work, and offers a real undo. The goal is not a world where nobody slips. It is a world where a slip does not become a disaster. Error tolerance is part of usability, not an admission of failure. You can audit almost any confusing object with 4 lenses. Affordance: what actions are actually possible for this person here? Signifier: what clue makes the intended action discoverable? Mapping: is the relationship between control and result clear? Feedback: after action, can the person tell what changed? These are not 4 isolated boxes. Together they reveal where the conversation breaks. Designers know what they meant, so their own interface often feels obvious. The stronger test is to watch someone encounter it without coaching. Where do they pause? What do they try first? Which mistake repeats? What do they believe happened afterward? Do not rescue the test too quickly. Hesitation is data, and explanation after confusion is not the same as clarity before action. When one person struggles, help them. When many people struggle in the same place, redesign the place. Training may still matter, especially in complex or dangerous work, but repeated training cannot permanently compensate for a misleading clue, a broken mapping, or missing feedback. Fix the environment so correct, action is easier to see, easier to perform, and easier to verify. The next time a door, switch, or app makes you feel stupid, pause before blaming yourself. Ask what action is possible, what clue is visible, how the control relates to the result, and what feedback confirms success. The object is always communicating even when the message is accidental. Good design makes that message clear. When confusion repeats, redesign the conversation.